Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Power. Not to be confused with The Power, the movie that I reviewed about like a year ago. This is an Amazon Plus show, and it's based off of a novel. So, let's see. This is a really interesting show. I find it very fascinating, and at times it's like very riveting and like uplifting and stuff like that. Like when you see what all these girls go through and when they like bond like with their power. So a couple of months ago, actually this came out just this year, a couple of months ago. So a couple of months ago, before I got Amazon Prime again, I was just on Amazon Prime, like looking for trailers of new shows to watch so I can like add it and then later on watch it whenever I do decide to like get it. And so I saw a trailer called The Power. I'm like, what the heck is this? I've never heard of that before. And so I was on watching it. I saw like a bunch of people had electrical powers coming out their fingertips and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. Maybe this is like a superhero show, you know what I'm saying? And so when I finally watched it, it turns out that, like I said before, it's based off a novel. It's called The Power, and it was written by Naomi Aderman. And so or Alderman. What it is about like young girls, teenagers develop a new organ underneath their collarbone, and it gives them the power of electricity. And it's pretty powerful. They can shoot out jolts of electricity, tiny sparks, lightning bolts, and they set things on fire. But this only happens in females. Well, later on, they determined they can transfer the power into older women because it's there in the older women's like DNA, their genes, but it's dormant. So they can like literally just spark, or they can just like electrocute like a woman and she'll get like the power. And it causes a lot of chaos in other countries. In fact, for the most part, the television show is pretty much a faithful adaptation of the book, but there are some changes here and there. And I'll get into those changes later. But basically, it's a new world order, and women aren't gonna take it no more. They are literally taking over and stuff. And now, the person who wrote the book, she's actually in the book as like a fictional character. She reads like a narration and stuff like that. Now, this show, like I said, it took 5 weeks to film, and they filmed in like America, the UK, South Africa, and I believe somewhere, if not Saudi Arabia, then maybe India, or maybe they got like a part of the UK and made it look like the Middle East or something like that. But anyways, this was supposed to film in Georgia, but because of the like new abortion laws over there, they decided to take it out of Georgia and put it someplace else. Much of Hollywood did this around that time. It's really hard to root for some of these characters because when they start off, some of them are very sympathetic, but then they all start to turn bad. And it's like I said before, if women were to take over the world now, it'll be smooth sailing for like a while, you know what I'm saying? Like at first. But then after later as time passes on, the women will start to become like the men because power corrupts. And this show shows what happens when power, literal energy power, corrupts people and stuff. They do terrible things. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, power will always corrupt. So I am glad that it showed that side in the show. But it does make it hard to root for people and stuff. Because a lot of these characters you try to root for, they just turn out like crummy and everything, And so this show really does push the boundaries of what, being a feminist about, being a strong woman, and, how women should stick together and not like put each other down like a lot of women do when they fight over men or they just fight over like any old thing. And, this show really does try to teach, women should stick together and, people should respect women and men should respect women and stuff like that. And it's supposed to like build like a level of self-confidence and and not shame or like not to like put your head down and let a man control you and stuff. Now some people are gonna find this show very irritating, mostly those anti-woke guys and stuff. And there is a character both in the book and in the show that is similar to them. It's basically a white male dude who's on the internet and doesn't want to stand for this crap and is starting some type of like male revolution to like be like an anti like woman and stuff like that. People get radicalized, and when it comes to the show, it shows a very realistic view of how the world would deal with something like this. Everything from the anti-woke dudes, from like how other countries will interpret this power and how women will like conquer and stuff. And there are like so far this show has not been renewed yet, but it also has not been canceled. And so I'm wondering if it does get renewed, will some of the stuff that happens in the book happen in the second season? Or will it go in a completely different direction? I'm assuming a different direction because of how some of these characters are altered from that of the book. And like, if it is canceled, well then it does it kind of ends in a way where it can just end on its own, where you can just make up like what happens in the future. But it does end off on slight cliffhangers, not too big cliffhangers, but just slight. So in a way it does finish itself, and in a way it does not. Now one thing I found very interesting when I was reading this and stuff is that like there was a creator, because this was this was adapted by like Jane Featherstone, I believe her name is, and another person named Reed Marnano. The person named Reed, I don't know why, but halfway into creating this show, she got fed up and she decided, look, I'm out. And when I'm out, I mean, I'm completely out. Take my name off the show. Take me off the director list. Take me off the writers list. Take me off executive producer. Take me off everything. And so they obliged and everything. She's not credited for nothing. But I did read somewhere that I believe she directed the first 2 episodes. And well, when you watch those first 2 episodes and then you watch all the other episodes, you do feel a slight difference in narration and tone. The best episodes are probably the first 3. Those are the big, most impactful ones. Somewhere in the middle, it kind of not necessarily loses its way, but it becomes a little bit more quieter and everything. And it still revolves around these characters that it's supposed to, but not as big and bold as the way it did in those first 3 episodes. Now, there is one episode, boy, it happens in the book, where there's one character named Tatiana. She is the wife of like a president in another country. I forget the country's name and I can't pronounce it. And she, like the way it's directed, that is cinematography right there, boy. That is a vision. That is a style. It has a vibe. And she beats the holy crap out of her husband, killing him, framing her stylist. And then she calls like security, crying, puts water on her eyes, pretending like she's crying, and she puts on a show. While it's all being played with Gwen, I can't say her name, Gwen Stefani. I'm just a girl. I'm just like, what the world am I watching? It had a vibe to it. Now, this show took 5 weeks to film, and it's actually a British American sci fi show. And all the writers and stuff were all female. Reminds me of what they did, but and with an E. And also, what's that Netflix show with the lady with the dark hair? Jessica Jones, that's it. And so, like, I mean, if they're gonna have a show all about female, you gotta have some female writers, man, and get that real female experience, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, this show is modern, like it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna hear some like trigger words that might people like, okay, I'm tired of hearing this in every TV show and every movie. When it comes to the people starring in this, the only people I really recognize is John Leguizamo. Like, he plays, I think Rob is his name. I'll look later. But he plays like the husband. And he started off as a pretty good husband and stuff. But then, they started making him a little crappy. I don't know if that happens in the book or not. And so what's really interesting, it feels like an anthology show because it has certain character it revolves around. Basically, in the book, there are three main characters, but in the show, there are a few more. And so you get their different, because they all live in different countries, right? So you get their different view of how they use their power, what they're going through with their power, and how their country is handling them with their power. And some of these characters, even though they're in other countries, they will interact, which is really neat, especially in the way and how they do it. And it's really, this reminds me of X-Men. I hope when the MCU starts making the X-Men, they take note of how this show is handling certain things, how it's handling people with the mutation and stuff. Because that's what the X-Men are all about, like registering people, putting them in camps, arresting them, killing them just because they're different, And, the men, of course, they're pissed about this because they don't have powers. And the women, well, every time a woman gets irritated by a man, she threatens to, like, zap him and stuff, which causes problems and causes men to want to revolt. And, if this were to ever happen in the real world, I'll be completely honest with you, I would never want this to happen. Why? Because like I said before, there needs to be equality. You can't just have one race or one gender, controlling everything. It needs to be a blend, a balance of like both. And I'm all for equality and stuff. And of course, I don't want to be, a slave or like, you just down to the litter. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's like running and stomping all over me and crap. Like that would suck. And I don't like that when it happens to women. Like I hate the way women are treated by men. It totally sucks and everything. And it's been going around for centuries. And, it makes you wonder what would the world be like if there was more equality and stuff back in like centuries ago, Would there be so many wars? Would there be so many assaults? Would there be like, like everything that's going on now? Like one of the reasons why TV and movies are the way they are with the whole, like, naked man booty always being on TV or like women putting down men is because that's what men did to women back in the days in movies and television shows, And so I get why it's doing the reverse. Only problem is, two wrongs don't make a right. You're teaching people to just like be the same way men were in the past, and that's totally wrong. And this is a teaching lesson for younger people because younger people learn from like TV, But, enough of that. Let's get into some character profiles. There is Allie, who will later go by the name Eve. Allie started off as the most sympathetic character ever. But as time started to move on, Because of the way people treat her, she started to turn bad. Now, what's interesting about her, and both in the show and in the book, she hears a voice in her head, a female voice. She is the only person who hears this voice. In the book, she believes it's her biological mother. But in the show, they never make that reference. In the show, she says that she was left, I think, like a Walmart at like 3 years old. Then she was put into foster care. But in the show, she believes that like the voice she hears in her head is a female Jesus Christ. And so, like, or a female God, I should say, like, but basically she thinks it's like God voice she hears in her head, but female. And no, they never reveal what exactly this voice is she hears in her head. One of the characters just believes she's crazy and hear voices in her head, but this voice is very, very precise and makes her do bad things. I wish they would explain what exactly this whole voice thing is about, because it's really weird. But anyways, when we first see her, she's just like silent. She has select mutism because of all the bad stuff that's happened to her in her life, and especially because we find out that her foster father has been sexually abusing her and stuff. Her foster mother knows that this is going on, but turns the music up loud as it's happening. When Allie discovers her power, which they call EOD in the show, also shins or something like that, she uses it to electrocute the crap out of him and kills him. After that, the voice tells her, grab a cross, grab your stuff, and get on out of there. After that, she's on her own. She's trying to pawn, like, some jewelry and everything. And the voice really helps her along, helps her how to lie to people. Then, she meets like a father whose car is messed up and like, has 2 daughters. And then she's able to jumpstart his battery with just her fingertips. Until she accidentally zaps the little girl and the father knocks the crap out of her on the side of the road. She's been on her own for a long time trying to evade the police because they're looking for her for the murder of her foster father. It is there she is found by a nun. And the thing about Allie is that she is extremely powerful. She's always practicing her power. In fact, she's probably the most gifted out of all the women that have this power. There are some that can shoot lightning bolts from their hands, and Roxy from England is very powerful and rage-like. But when it comes to Allie, she can do a lot with that of her power. And like, she goes to this place known as like, I think it's like the Sisters of Christ or something like that. She meets Sister Maria. Sister Maria is a transgender like woman and a nun. And so while there, all she has to do is just be a good girl. But she can't do that because she's a bit of a rebel now. And so she changes her name to Eve. And while there, she butts heads a lot with Sister Veronica. And, like Sister Veronica doesn't want them to use their power, but she's like, no, this is our gift from God. We should use it, this and that. So she's very defiant. She literally makes miracles happen. One girl was having seizures, and she was able to stop the girl having seizures with her powers. A bird literally died, and within a couple of seconds later, she brought the bird back to life. The voice in her head is teaching her all kind of stuff, like what electrical eels can do with this and that. She can, you can also, the power comes from your fingertips. It can also come from your feet. She is literally giving people a holy baptism in the river or the lake or whatever, with her electrical powers and like the water. She realizes that she can just put her foot in the water and she can zap people with it. Not only that, but she can shut off other girls' powers by, I don't know how, but somehow she does it. because it's some kind of electrical current and all this other crap. She is extremely gifted to the point where she's looked at almost like a deity and everything. When she starts butting heads with Veronica, that's when the voice tells her, look, you need to take over this place. So she starts like talking to the girls, showing them her power, showing them how awesome she is, to the point where she literally turns that place into like a cult. And so when they realize who she is and Sister Veronica wants to call the police, the voice tells her that, thoughts in your head are just electrical impulses and they can be altered. By grabbing Veronica's hand, she shoots currents into her brain, making her almost lobotomized and everything. But it has a bad side effect. It causes hemorrhaging in her brain and she's bleeding from the eyes, killing her. Some of the girls want her to leave, but other girls are all like, no, she's like awesome and this and that. One girl really wants her to leave, but she's outvoted and stuff. Allie/Eve has literally turned this place into like a cult, and it's now hers and everything. Now she does meet Roxy from England because they saw each other, she saw each other on YouTube, and they started running off the mouth on each other, and Roxy wants to learn how she does that, and she sees that Roxy is very powerful, but she was able to shut Roxy's powers off. But Roxy was able to click them back on and zap the crap out of her and stuff. So those two form like a bond. Now this bond does not happen at all in the book. I don't even know if those two even meet and stuff. Now, the actress who plays Allie, this is actually her first and only thing she's ever acted in. And she's really good. I hope she gets more work after this, because a lot of people in the show are really good and stuff. Roxy is a rebel. She's from England and everything, and basically she wants acceptance from her father, who is a mobster and everything. She lives with her mom and they're pretty poor. The dad kind of somewhat takes care of them, but they live in an apartment while he lives in a really nice mansion. Roxy has a huge chip on her shoulder because of the way she grew up and everything, and she also does not take crap from nobody. She is probably the most powerful in terms of electrical rage and stuff. And so, that's how she builds up her power. Basically, her and her mom were attacked when two men came in and beat the crap out of both of them, but ended up killing her mom. So because of that, she goes to her dad. Now he's accepting her in his life a whole lot more. She meets her brothers and her stepmom, who she can't get along with. Her and the brothers bond pretty good, except for one brother who he's the oldest and stuff. And so basically, now she's living that mobster type lifestyle and being her dad's kind of like enforcer. When somebody doesn't pay up, she electrocutes them and stuff. But she's spiraling out of control because she misses her mom. She loves her mom to death. And so she starts teaching other girls how to use their powers and charging them lots and lots of money. And then she's later on the internet where, that's how both Josh and that of Allie know her and stuff. So in a way, they do kind of meet and interact just via, internet. But Josh never contacts her, but Allie does. So anyways, she wants the person who offed her mom. So extremely high one day and raving at a club, her and her brothers go to, handle that business for her and stuff. They just want to talk to the person, but she's too impulsive. When she brings the dude out and beats the crap out of him and electrocutes the crap out of him, he literally says, I can get you in contact with the person who hired, us to kill your mom. I kind of already suspected who did it. It was just kind of one of those things, you know what I'm saying? But with some gunfire exchange, one of her brothers ends up getting shot. And the stepmom hates her after that. Basically, her dad still wants to use her as an enforcer, but she doesn't really want to harm nobody, at least for that day. After that, she's back to hurting people. Things start to unravel even more when her older brother, gives her a bunch of like money, tells her, you need to get out, like, the city, the country, whatever. And he said something interesting about the dad. I've already suspected this. Now, she finds out that like her mom had a boyfriend, but she never knew that. So she goes to that dude's place, and he used to be a cop who was investigating her father. And he basically spills the beans and everything of who had her mother killed. Now, I've already suspected it was her dad, but why exactly? Well, one, he wants Roxy's power for himself, and two, he doesn't like the fact that her mom started to find and date another guy who happened to be a cop who was investigating him. So he needed to make an example. So instead of killing her father, instead she gives the power to that of like, her stepmom. After that, her brother warns her that the dad is coming to put a hit on her and stuff. And so he knows that she's about to fly out to New York. So instead, she heads to like, Georgia or wherever, where she meets up with that of Allie. Now, in the book, Roxy actually takes over her father's like mob organization, but in the show, she doesn't. Tatiana has a very sad backstory. I forget what country they live in, but basically, she was a gymnast as a teenage girl, and she wanted to go to the Olympics. But there's a problem. Her mom sold her to this man in the government. Her and her mom have a huge fight, and so she's forced to live with him no matter what. He later becomes president, and she had a little sister. She grew up, and basically, she is just like his wife slash like slave. She has an ankle monitor on her and everything. And so I couldn't really figure out what the heck was going on with this character. And it turns out that, like, because she's always sad and, like, depressed. And so one day, she hates her husband, by the way. He's like an older man, bigger, and she just doesn't like that. And she's just like extremely slim, and she's just basically a house, like she's a trophy wife that's really sad and depressed. Her mom came by one day begging for money and a place to stay, but she let her mom know like what you did to me and my sister was wrong, and I want nothing to do with you. And she kicks her out, kicking and screaming. So she finds out that one of her like servants has like the power and forces her to give it to her, but she doesn't do nothing with it. See, not everybody can control it the way most people can. And so basically they have to hold on to somebody to zap them. Some of them just can't shoot a bolt from like their hand. Well, in that really interesting scene, well, before that interesting scene, her husband had like an interview with these two reporters. And so one of the reporters tells her, like, I met your sister, stuff like that. Her sister is Zola, and Zola was sold into like slavery, a sex slave, human trafficking with a bunch of other girls. Her mom did that to her, and she's also pregnant. When she finds out that one of the servant girls who's deaf has the power, she makes her give it to her, and she gives it to everybody else. After that, they like kill all the men there, and they revolt. Basically, Zola has now turned herself into the general, and she is taking over. Her and the rest of the women live out in like the forest area, and they don't take no crap from men. They are basically about to take over. They meet a reporter from Nigeria, which I'll get into him a little bit later, because he's really one of the few main males in the show. And so like she gives him a message. Now back to Tatiana. After he gives her this message and everything, She realizes she needs to, like, take care of some business. So she ends up murdering her husband after he started kicking her dog and stuff like that. She beat the crap out of him with a blunt object. Then she blackmails, not blackmail, but she frames the her servant lady who gave her that power. Now, the servant lady was really nice. She has a brother and she just wants to get back to him and her family. And Tatiana just completely frames her. And it's like, dude, how am I supposed to support this character after what she just did? Then she kills the servant lady. And that's when she, like, called, like, security and put on that act of crime and stuff like that. Then she tells her army, I know where, like, the rebel women are at. You need to take care of them. But she contacts her sister, letting them know the heads up. So she betrayed her own army. And well, her sister, along with the rebels, took out the entire army. Basically, they now rule the entire country. Yeah. But it's a little different in the book. See, in the book, when she takes over the country and everything, there's somebody who kills her. I guess that somebody is the equivalent of her sister in the show and stuff like that. And so, yeah, like in the book, basically she dies and everything after taking over the country and trying to take it to like the rebels and stuff. Tundi, I believe that's how you say his name. He's really our only main male character other than that of Margot's husband and son. And basically he's an aspiring video journalist. And he's starting off, he doesn't have that many like views or followers and stuff. And it's not really going well. Well, there's this one girl that's his on again, off again, like friend slash kind of girlfriend and everything. And he's a bit of a screw up at times, and so she has the power. Now, I assumed it was going to follow her instead of him because it's a female show, but it doesn't. And just like in the book, it follows him as well. He is the one who kind of interacts with the other characters from the other countries because he's a journalist. Basically, what happens is he follows his friend as she's hanging out with a bunch of girls using the power, and he videotapes them. And when he's spotted, they don't like that, he is filming them. And so they try to zap him, but they end up getting his friend in the face. He posts that online, and it made him extremely famous to where CNN wants to hire him and everything. And so, like, him and her are constantly like going at it because she's all like, you need to man up and all this other stuff. And her face is badly scarred because of this. And so he leaves to take on like, the journalism job because he became very famous now. One of the places they sent him was Saudi Arabia. And oh my God, when you see what happens in the second episode, no, this is the third episode, man, things get crazy. Basically, there's a woman in the street and she's just using her power. She's just making her hands spark. And so, like, she's not harming nobody or nothing like that. Well, a group of men see that and they don't like it and they beat her within an inch of her life. The townspeople find out about this. Like her family, the male and females, and the women have had enough. They demand that those men be brought to justice. And the military is trying to stop these women, but they can't. It's all out fight. The women are literally taking over. They're marching in the streets one by one. It's a huge protest. They're taking down tanks. They're taking down soldiers. Some of the women are getting shot. Tundi ends up getting shot in the shoulder. And they bring justice to that man who beat that woman. And they are literally just in the streets protesting. It is a huge moment. Tundi is a bit in trouble because things are getting out of hand with the military. This one woman helps him and everything, and she helps get him out the country. And this makes him even more famous. He almost literally didn't even make it out the country. So then he tried to patch things up with his friend back home in Nigeria. But those two always go back and forth. So then he's headed to America to talk to Mayor Margaret. And she's one of the main characters as well. He's pressing her on a bunch of questions that she's not supposed to answer. After that, he is later sent to that country where Tatiana lives at. He's supposed to find that of Zola and everything. And they literally send him in, they give him a gun, and they basically tell him to like take her out. Whoever these people is that hired him to go over there. So of course he goes over there, they stop him, they're about to kick him out, and Tatiana's like giving birth. It's a almost graphic birth scene. Like, I don't know how the heck they did this exactly, but let's just say you see the vagina and you see the baby head crown. I've never seen that on television in a television show or movie. And I watched Called a Midwife, and they've never shown something that graphic. And the only time I've ever seen something like that was when I was in high school in the 10th grade doing sex ed. And so, like, yeah, it's probably a prosthetic baby and a prosthetic, like, bottom torso area. But who knows, you know what I'm saying? But later Zoloff, like, talks to him because, you know, he keeps his cool and everything. And that's when she tells him to give the message to that of her sister. Well, things go very, very, very wrong. See, he gets in contact with this British guy who's friends with John Leguizamo's character. And so they're supposed to interview the president of that country. But things go very badly when they realize that he's always videotaping stuff in other countries and that he's had contact with the rebels. They don't like this and they put him in an interrogation room with the British guy. The British guy is able to weasel his way out, but Tundi sadly cannot. But he's later freed by Tatiana. And she tells him, hop your behind in the cab. It will take you back to your hotel. And then you're getting on a plane ride and you're going home. And she ain't playing around when he keeps trying to like talk to her. And she won't let him thank him, nothing like that. So basically he calls his British dude up and they're like, you ratted me out. And the dude's all like, look, they're keeping the eye on you. He looks out the window and see people are tailing him. I can't talk. Anyways, he's scared. I mean, he's scared right now. And he has to get out the country. It's looking pretty bad for Tundi and everything, you know. And it's really sucks because, you know, this experience has really taught him to, like, respect women and all this other stuff. And he just wants to get the word out for the whole world to see and become famous at the same time. But basically, he's so close to leaving, but he realizes something. The military are headed to take out Zola, and she does not know. So he gets in the car and he drives on out there, only to see tons and tons of dead bodies. A few female, but mostly men. The women took out all the men. He's really upset and everything, and he sees one of the dying generals. One of the generals that was like, not Zola general, but like a natural military man general, who was rude to him before and interrogating him. And he literally tells them, you know, like, Tatiana betrayed them and everything. I don't know what happens to his character after this. He tries to get the man out of there. But you know, then we see the rest of the dead bodies and all the women happy and celebrating and stuff. I literally have no idea what happened to that dude, like, whatsoever. And I'm really curious to know what happened to him. For the most part, Zola is okay with him, and so is Tatiana. But you never know, because now the women have literally taken over that entire country. Now, in the books, Tundi almost gets like sexually assaulted while he's in India by a group of women. This does not happen in the show. So now that leaves us with Josh, her mother, the mayor, and her entire family. And man, I'm telling you, This is when things get very political on the show, because you see how America treats the EOD, and they treat it very differently and stuff. So we have Josh, and she's not a main character in the book. She's like recurring, but she's main on the show. And she's just a typical teenage girl who's acting like, ugh, everything sucks. Leave me alone. Like that type person, you know what I'm saying? Like her and her mom cannot get along. Now she's voiced by the girl from Moana and everything. And so, like, basically, when she discovers her powers, she can't control them. She's setting crap on fire. And she can't shoot lightning bolts out. She can barely do anything with her power. And she feels very inferior. She doesn't understand how girls on the internet are able to do it. She sees a video of Roxy talking about get enraged and pretend like you're in a fight, but it's just not working. So she accidentally zaps her brother in the eye when they're fighting over the remote control. This starts to turn him to be against her and all women. Later on, he gets radicalized. Anyways, so like basically when she's at school, the government is testing who has EOD. So they're making all the girls do like a test. Then, when her father goes to school, he is horrified to see that all the girls have like rubber gloves on, their hands tied, and they're in some kind of glass looking jar type thing. And basically, they're rounding up all the teen girls. So, at some point, um, her dad discovers that, with the help of another scientist, that it's a new organ that grows underneath the collarbone and stuff. So after that, her and her boyfriend are always going through crap. She's trying to make out with her boyfriend, and they're trying to, but she's doing it a little too rough, and he's keep telling her to stop, and she will not stop until he accidentally smacks her by mistake. But she ended up zapping him a couple of weeks ago, or whatever. It turns out her boyfriend is intersex. He goes by a male and he had surgery to get rid of his female parts. And turns out that he has the power when she zapped him a long time ago. But he kept it quiet because one, he's the only male that has it and people will not react very well. She is pissed by this because she's all like, when you saw us getting rounded up and everything, you just kept your mouth shut. But he did it out of fear because if they're doing that to the girl, just think they'll do it to a guy who had both body parts and stuff. This reminds me so much of the X-Men and stuff. Well, anyways, as her brother's getting radicalized by like that online group, he sees outside, the boyfriend trying or using his powers and stuff. So he records it and he puts it on the internet. This causes a whole lot of problems for that of the boyfriend and his family. She is so pissed that Josh literally tells her brother, I'm gonna kill you, and zaps his behind. But the mom interferes and blocks the zap because she has powers of her own. How exactly? Well, her mom, Margaret, is a mayor. And when she finds out that the girls have this power, she goes to the governor. He already knew about this but kept it quiet. And basically, he wants to register every female in the United States who has this power. She does not want that, reminding you of the X-Men. And so she's all like, this power is like a gift. And if you single out like, women in this way, it's going to be bad and blah, 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 blah. In a way, she takes it upon herself to out the power and everything. Talking about, all females have it that are teenagers and blah, 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 and stuff like that. Her family is not too pleased because they did not want her to come forward and tell the American people because they would not react very well. And we see this happening when a man who's drunk goes to a bar. There's a female bartender. He demands to have a beer. And she's all like, quiet your behind down. As she's like, making sparks come from her fingers. He pulls out a taser and tries to attack her, only to get stopped by some men. And he's all like, well, I'm just defending myself and everything. She tried to zap me first, which technically she did. And so, like, the mayor and the governor, they're constantly going back and forth at it. And he literally tells her, "Oh, I bet you're after my job. And I bet you have the power." And he's all like, "If you ever try to mess with me, I'll bury you." This infuriates her to where she asks her daughter for the power. This is when they start bonding and smoking weed. Her husband, on the other hand, he starts off as a really, really good husband, played by John Leguizamo. But then when he gets drunk, he turns out that, he doesn't like his wife all that much. And, he feels degraded by her. She never listens to him. She just does what she wants. She wants to run for governor. He does not want that. It's even to the point where they try to hook him up with another woman and he's about to cheat. But he tells her, after you win this campaign, I'm leaving you and everything. Because everything in their family is turning to crap because of this power. And mostly because their son is getting radicalized and stuff. And so, like, it's even to the point where a man who's also radicalized sets himself on fire and kills himself. The family has to get a security detail, and they are literally just not safe. Plus, they're pissed at the son for outing out Josh's, like, boyfriend and stuff. And so, Margaret is keeping the power to herself, not telling nobody, until it's revealed when Josh tries to harm her brother, shoots a lightning bolt out for the first time. The mom shoots out one of her own, blocking it. This pisses off the husband to the point where he wants to leave her because she didn't even trust him enough to tell him about that. Things go way, 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 way worse when they have, like, the first debate. And like I said before, the governor dude, he hates her and stuff like that. He's trying to tell them, this power is dangerous. People don't need it. And all this other crap. He pisses her off so much, she turns to him and electrocutes him with a bolt of lightning. It's so dire that he dies from it while this is all on live television. So now it ends with that, and we don't know what's going to happen with her character afterwards, which leaves off on the biggest cliffhanger of them all. Now, in the book, it's a little different. In the book, she creates these camps, training camps, where she teaches these girls how to use their powers. Not only that, but she won her election through her power by threatening all the men and stuff like that. So she has become corrupt in the books. Like I said, this is a very fascinating show, a very unique and interesting show. And I've never quite seen a show like this where it's only the females that gets powers. I watch X-Men and stuff like that, and it reminds me of that. But in the X-Men, both the men and the women get it. Now, this show does have a very uplifting vibe to it. Like when the girls are bonding over their powers and making their powers come out and making the sparks come from their fingers and touching each other with it like that. You feel it through the screen. You feel this uplifting, bond that the women are experiencing on the show and everything. And, that's really cool and unique that they're able to do that with just the tips of their fingers. Now, there are some things about this show I wish they would have done a little bit differently or shown a little bit more, because there are only 9 episodes in this season, and I wish that the show was a bit longer so they can deviate a bit more from the source material and really show more like the perception of like how the general public is dealing with this, because they only shown one woman who's opposed to actually they show kind of two. The assistant to that of the mayor, they show that she doesn't want EOD, but she fully supports the mayor doing what she does because she wants her to be senator. But during a town hall meeting during a debate, There was one woman who said, she's a feminist and all this other stuff, but she doesn't want EOD. But then, with a few words of persuasion, the mayor is able to change her tone and everything. I really wanted to see what more people, especially females, thought about this who, don't have that power, mostly the older women. Because Sister Veronica, she was like okay with them having the power. She just didn't want them to use it and stuff. And so I really am curious to know how people felt about this because, like the mayor said that, crimes against women are down, and they're down because men are scared of women now. And I really wanted to show more of that. Like, what does the general public, especially also men, really think about this? Because normally when you see men react to this, it's always in a negative kind of way, or they try to hurt these women and stuff. So it would have been nice to have a discussion about this other than the men just wanting to murder the women who have this power, or the women just staying completely silent. You know what I'm saying? Another thing I wish they would have shown was how is everybody in the world dealing with this? Because they really only show, let's see, one, two, three, four different countries, and that's really it. And of course, the black country is the one that's shown the less, which is really jacked up. You know what I'm saying? Like the people in Nigeria, you really don't see their reaction whatsoever. I mean, some of the people think that they're witches, but that's about it. And when I say they don't spend much time in Nigeria, they don't spend much time whatsoever there. And so, in America, we know that, you have one political person who wants to embrace this, and you have another political person who does not. And of course, one's a woman and one is a man. Over in England, their people aren't saying nothing really. It's just okay, whatever, and stuff like that. Like the government's not getting involved whatsoever. And of course, that one country, that a name I forget, they just trying to go around killing people and stuff. And of course, over in Saudi Arabia, the women have taken over. But now there was one time when all the world leaders were shown in a montage. First, they all first they didn't like it, and they had to see what's going on. Then all of a sudden they changed their tone, and but it's a very short montage, but it's very, very short. I really wanted to see how other countries were tackling this. Also, they don't depict no Asian countries or Hispanic well, actually, no, I take that back. The one country where that one lady rules, I don't know what country that is. I don't know what language they speak, so I don't even know what that is. But there's no Asian countries in this series, and I want to see how they react to this. Now there is an Asian character, but she's only the best friend, and she's shown for a total of maybe 30 seconds or maybe to a minute. There is an Asian male character who is the intersex character, but he's shown very briefly in the show. So it would have been nice to see more interpretations of race and cultures and stuff, and the show didn't do that. Now maybe if they get a second season, maybe they'll do it then, who knows. But I'm pretty sure also in the source material there they don't depict every other country as well. But I never read the book, I just read the synopsis and stuff. Also, how come nobody's tried to be a superhero or a vigilante with this power? Because for them, or a super villain. Because yeah, Roxy turns into a mob boss in the books, but not here in the show. And of course, Eve turns into a cult leader, but that's about it. Because she has a group of girls that live at the nun church chapel place and stuff. But that's about it. You never see nobody trying to be oh, well, I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to fight crime. You would think that would happen because, they got superpowers now that can shoot lightning bolts and stuff and bring people back from the dead and jump start a car battery or a cell phone battery, something like that, Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.